Cuba, it's me! Welcome to episode 156 of The Willow Show, which stands for Wrestling is Life. Life is Wrestling. Now, I want to go back and talk about the reason why wrestling is life, life is wrestling, and how important wrestling has been to me, and how it pretty much always came first in my whole life. Like, I remember when I was like 8 years old. Um, I wanted to get this. I got a Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazine somehow. Now there was not a lot of stores that sold them. The only magazine we really got was the WWF magazine. But I think I was like in Vancouver or in Nanaimo, BC somewhere, and I got a Pro Wrestling Illustrated. And in it, they're like, I couldn't wait. It's like it's gonna be another month. I seen this ad for Pro Wrestling Illustrated Weekly, which was like a black and white. Basically, I think it was just two sides, and I saved up cans. I would go, excuse me, I would go walking out on these logging roads with a garbage bag, and any beer cans I found or pop cans, I would throw them in this bag, and eventually I would go to the overweighty supermarket grocery store, and there was this machine, and you had to put each can in individually, and it would crush them up, and then after you put in so many cans, it would print you out a slip, and you could go to the cashier, the grocery cashier lady, and she would give you the money or whatever. So I finally saved up enough, and I got enough money, and I got a subscription to Pro Wrestling Illustrated Weekly, and it would have like results, and it would have like one big article, and then it would have like the top 10 rankings. Like, this was so big to me. I remember being in school. Like, I used to do really good in school. I used to get like straight A's and stuff like that. But then wrestling and girls and like partying with my friends and stuff like that, all of a sudden that became more important. And I'd be like in English, supposed to be like doing some big project or something, and I'd be sitting there writing a wrestling promo or a wrestling angle, and I met Aaron Curran, and then he would come up with all these ideas, and he would recruit people. He'd get like amateur wrestlers, and he would get like the karate guy, and like anybody that he saw, and he would try and bring crowds to our backyard wrestling events, and he would make titles, and everybody else could contribute and try and make their outfit look good and stuff like that. And I always thought back then I was called Mayhem, and I'm gonna be Mayhem when I come. And then the origins of Elian is someone right around that time. Elian Gonzalez was he was like a kid that got taken from his mother or his father from Cuba to the States or something like that. But it was a huge deal on the news, and there was like this picture of the SWAT team going to rescue him and return. It was a big conflict between Cuba and U.S. And being 18 and looking like 14, they're like, wow, you really look like that alien kid. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I do have a bit of Cuban in me. Because my aunt, I had this Aunt Lois, and she was always trying to find out our heritage and stuff. Like, we all knew what my dad's side of the family was, but no one knew my mom's side of the family. There was something in there. And the traces of it got lost somehow. And some people thought it was native, or a lot of people thought it was like Spanish or Cuban, so that worked out perfectly. I went to the Cambridge Mall in 2000, the Cambridge Center, and I bought these pants from like, I can't remember what it was called. It wasn't Roots, but it was like a store like that, and they had like sweatshirts and pants and jeans. And I bought these pants, and I went to Zellers, and I saw this orange vest, and I bought this. I remember this was $15. I think the pants were 30, and I bought wrestling boots from Sid Summers for $50. They were his old practice boots. And that's the same costume that I've now had for 17 years. And I remember I would go to the grocery store with my mom, and I would spend the whole time, I would go to the magazine section, and I'd read the whole WWF Raw magazine. And like any money I had, I saved up, I bought a trampoline just for wrestling. My mom got this video camera, and I would save up money from like doing chores. I started when I was like 12. I took a babysitter's course, and I started babysitting this young man named Gordon down the road. And I would save up those money and buy blank tapes for this VCR just so we would record our wrestling matches. And they were so brutal because like a lot of times it would be just me and Aaron, or it'd be me and my sister and Brandon and Chris. And like as we were doing the matches, we were also trying to announce them. Or like sometimes when we came down, we would try and sing the entrance music or hum the entrance music ourselves. And so we would do the matches and do the play-by-play. I actually remember I created this whole fed, and I had we called it the toy room, which was like the kids' living room, and I put this mattress down with a couch and made it look like a top rope and a ring. And I would get these cassette tapes and I'd put them in and I'd press record and I would do the matches. And as I was doing them, I would record the play-by-play. And I made like 8 tag teams and like 16 single guys, and I did pay-per-views and matches, and wrestling just consumed me. And I was like, when I was a kid, I was also really big into sports and really big into reading. And I would do all the other sports, and wrestling always came first, and I couldn't help it. It was like an addiction. I was drawn to it more than anything else. And wrestling really is life, and life really is wrestling. To this day, when I'm daydreaming, I find I'm daydreaming about wrestling still. I'm still that little kid that thinks, one day I'm gonna be in the WWF or whatever. It's just one of those things, you can never let it go. And like, I can't even really watch wrestling now. I barely have any time. I try and watch like the big ones, like SummerSlam and Royal Rumble, WrestleMania. I miss most of the Raws and SmackDowns. I want to get into TNA. I can't do it. I want to watch Ring of Honor. I can't do it. I want to support all the local Ontario indie shows and watch all the videos they put online, and like the Japan stuff. I really want to watch Japan. You know what? I find myself watching the shoot interviews more than anything. There's a lot of shoot interviews on wrestling. I really love like the Kevin Nash ones and the Jim Cornette ones and the Bret Hart ones and Scott Hall and X-Pac. They're all so well spoken, and there's so many good ones. I could go on forever. I really love the shoot interviews. And to this day, I just think about wrestling. I got a wrestling tattooed on my arm, and like when I go through my news feed, I go on my wrestling Facebook more than any of the other things, just reading about wrestling, and I'm like, oh my god, did you hear this? Or just like, like not spying, but like just going through and reading anything and soaking on any knowledge I could find on wrestling, even if it's not knowledge, even if it's just gossip, or even if it's like, oh hey, did you hear about so and so? It's like, wow. Or like someone puts out a comment about someone and it's a big deal, and like I don't even subscribe to those like wrestling sites and stuff like that, but they suggest them based on my viewing thing on, and I end up clicking on the articles, even if they're just clickbait. Wrestling really is life, and I don't think I could ever. Oh man, I would have an empty hole. Like for people that don't have a passion, for people that don't have a hobby, they can't understand it or grasp it because like it just consumes you. Is there anything cooler than wrestling? Like movies and TVs are, they're alright, but they're fake. And sports are good, but they're sports. And combining the two is just so amazing. And I felt like even now with the WWE, everything used to be so predictable, but nowadays it's not really that predictable the way it used to be. It's like they're ahead of the curve. They know what people are expecting, so they try and just do something different, even if it doesn't make sense, just a surprise here and there. So that's what I really want to talk about, is just how much I love wrestling. Maybe this is just going to be part one. I could talk about this all day, but time gets short, and I don't want to keep these videos so long. And it's not one of my interesting interviews, which I might add, I have some great ones coming up. So remember, like or you get a leg drop, comment or you get a clothesline, subscribe or you get a suplex. I'm your host, Elliot Habanero. I love wrestling. Cuba!